As a fan of adult animation, I check out just about anything. Whether it's new on Fox, new on Hulu, I just want to give these shows a chance because adult animation really does have some incredible potential. Not only can you have just as good writing as a dramatic TV series that's live action, but your bounds for what you put on screen are really limitless in a sense. It's kind of limited by your animation budget, but you can do some crazy stuff and make some really interesting visuals to go with some really interesting stories. Just like in BoJack Horseman, Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites, F is for Family. There's so much potential for this medium. It's usually turned to comedy, you know, cause of The Simpsons, and that's what it's supposed to be. Because it's also animation, and when you think animation, you think funny slapstick like Tom and Jerry. Whatever you're using adult animation for, it has a lot of potential. However, I don't think I've ever seen the potential wasted more than over at the network of Fox. I already did a video ranting about it a little bit that'll be linked at the end of this one, but today we're taking a look at one of Fox's especially terrible failures, coming from the mind of Jonah Hill, Jared Paul, and Andrew Mogul. Today, we're talking about Allen Gregory. Allen Gregory follows the titular character Allen Gregory, voiced by Jonah Hill, who comes from a very rich family with his dads Jeremy and Bald Dad, because I don't even care what his name is. He's one of the most unlikable characters I've ever seen in my entire life, but Jeremy is his other dad, and he is a likable, loving character if there ever was one. But he's belittled constantly because that's what the show does. He also has his sister Julie, who's belittled constantly despite being a likable character, because that's what the show does, and that's what's funny. But the show focuses on Allen Gregory having to leave homeschooling to go to a regular elementary school. Now, we've ran into this problem with Big Mouth before, of having full-grown adults voicing much younger characters. It feels kind of weird. However, I can say that Big Mouth sort of gets away with it because of how the show's presented. It's not trying to be super grounded in reality. It's having morals that are grounded in reality, but at the end of the day, it's about hormone monsters and these disgusting looking children getting into hijinks. It really doesn't read like a look at middle school. It looks like a tainted look at middle school from an adult's perspective. So it makes sense that the kids have those adult voices, and it feels weird, but not as weird as Allen Gregory, because Allen Gregory plays things pretty straight. Allen Gregory plays the show as if Allen Gregory, whose name I'm going to say a million times in this video, is an actual elementary school student. And because of that, it just feels really weird with Jonah Hill's voice coming out of him. It's like when Seth Green was going to voice the main character in Mars Needs Moms. That would just be bizarre and ridiculous, and they changed that in Mars Needs Moms because they realized how strange it was to have a full-grown adult's voice, especially Seth Green's voice, coming out of that child. But I can say that the voice acting in this show is pretty dang good, although the potential with it is really wasted. It's got more voice potential than it does voice talent, because the people behind it are definitely talented. From French Stewart to Will Forte, or even Jonah Hill himself, there's a lot of great voice acting in this, and it sounds pretty good all the time throughout the show. However, it's what they're saying that really gets on my nerves. Like I said, there's only really two likable characters in this entire show. Jeremy, one of Allen Gregory's dads, and Julie, his adopted sister. You can maybe count Allen Gregory's mom, voiced by Lisa Kudrow. I forget what his actual mom's name is. We'll just call her Allen Gregory's mom. She's kind of likable, but only in the sense that there's really no one else to like in the entire show. And I really mean that. In any other show, she'd just be a character. But in this show, she becomes likable because of how unlikable every other human being on screen is. Especially Allen Gregory and his bald dad. Listening to those two characters talk is one of the most frustrating and annoyingly enabling things I've ever seen in any show ever. It's just frustrating to watch these characters constantly make bad decisions, never learn anything from them, never go anywhere as characters, and just be constantly content with being awful. It's one of the worst dynamics I've ever seen in any TV show, and it makes the show borderline unwatchable just from that dynamic. A dynamic that's pretty much always present in the show. And we haven't even gotten to the strangest part of the entire show that I'm sure everyone at Fox thought would be the funniest gag of the show, because it comes up in every episode. Allen Gregory's attraction to his 60-year-old principal. Principal Gottlieb, I'm not really sure how to say her name, it's spelled really funkily. I heard it in the show dozens of times, but I think my brain's actively trying to repress what I saw. She's a fine enough character. She's annoying. They draw her in a way so they can make gross out jokes about old overweight women, so that's really funny. But Allen Gregory is incredibly attracted to her, and that's also supposed to be funny. You know, because he's a little kid. There's also an episode where Allen Gregory tries to make a sex tape with him and his principal. AKA, Allen Gregory tries to make child pornography. And in this world that's supposedly a little bit grounded with actual elementary school students, no one bats an eye to this. They just let Allen Gregory do whatever he wants to do. And that's really the key problem of this show. It has no idea what it's doing in terms of presentation. It seems like there was no direction whatsoever with how they wanted this show to act like as a real world. Whether it be a really strange one where crazy stuff happens, like Family Guy, where it's really out there, they can do all these crazy, wacky things, and then it just resets in the next episode. Or if they want it to be a grounded world, where mistakes actually matter, people remember things, or even if they don't remember things, at least it's grounded in some form of reality. They just needed to make a decision as to what direction they wanted to take the show, and the show, in its 7 episodes I believe that it had, never made any decisions of that nature. All we're left with is the sense of humor in comedy. If the comedy is good enough, it doesn't really matter if all that stuff is disconnected, because at least you're laughing along despite everything being nonsense. But this show isn't funny. And when I say it isn't funny, I'm not trying to like belittle it. I'm saying legitimately, I found one joke in this entire show that got me to almost laugh, and then the show realized it was a joke and doubled down on it and dwelt on it for way too long. It's in about the 5th episode, I believe. It was the 6th episode with Allen Gregory's mom, because one of the kids in Allen Gregory's class says in a really depressed voice, "Oh, I wish my mom was here, but she got murdered." If that had just been a hard cut away as something in the background, that's something I could maybe giggle at, because why? That's a strange thing for them to bring up. It's really out of the blue. It's a little bit of shock humor. I'm willing to take that at this point. And trust me, I was deprived of comedy while watching through this show. Easily. 5 episodes with no laughs, and finally you get to the 6th one with some form of joke. And the show realizes they made a joke. So they have one of the characters turn back around, one of Allen Gregory's rivals, I guess, at elementary school, and point out the fact that that joke just happened. It's like, oh yeah, don't bring up your mom again, that happened a long time ago. That's not the point of the joke. The point of the joke was the delivery of it being so weirdly enthusiastic and then depressed right after it. Pointing attention to it just makes it really cringe-inducing, and that's kind of what this entire show is, a cringe-inducing mess. It doesn't feel good to watch. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything but punishing yourself when you're going through it. It really is a drag and a trek. It feels like a chore to watch this show, and it's oddly long episodes. They're like 25 minutes long for some reason. I don't know why they did that. They only ordered 7 episodes, thank God, so it didn't take me that long to get all the way through, and I tried watching it a very long time ago. But this show, for those of you who don't know, has all but been scrubbed from all places. To my knowledge, the only 2 places where you have a chance of finding Allen Gregory are in the UK and Canada. If you live in jolly old America, chances are you're not going to be able to find this show. So in order for me to watch it, I had to go to great lengths. And what was I rewarded with for finally finding Allen Gregory? One of the worst TV shows. Not one of the worst animated TV shows. One of the worst TV shows I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, you all saw the thumbnail for this video, and you saw Jonah Hill on there. And yes, Jonah Hill was a big part of this show. In fact, it was part of a deal that he signed with Fox. After Allen Gregory, Jonah Hill went on to do 21 and 22 Jump Street, 2 movies that I really like. I think they're hilarious. They're fantastic movies. And before that, Jonah Hill wasn't doing that bad. This show, for whatever reason, just didn't click for him. I don't know if it's the transition over to adult animation and what Fox's ideas for the show should be and how they wanted it presented. I really can't tell, but Jonah Hill is an incredibly talented human being. He is fantastic. He can write, direct, and act perfectly. He really is just top tier, in my opinion. Allen Gregory seems to be one of the biggest missteps by someone this talented I've ever seen. And we all know that Jonah Hill can do much better things, much funnier things, much more interesting things. Even stuff like mid-90s, stuff unique like that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me how Allen Gregory came from Jonah Hill. I think it had something to do with Jonah Hill not exactly knowing how to approach adult animation and that style of comedy, and Fox dipping its fingers in and saying, well, Family Guy is a talking baby, why don't we bring that up a little bit to an elementary school student? And the talking baby in Family Guy is really smart, why do you make this one pretentious and unlikable? I don't know if it was all Jonah Hill, I don't know if it was all Fox, but they worked together, and I have to say that it seems like Fox dipped their disgusting fingers into the Allen Gregory pool. However, this show was doomed to fail from the beginning. Straight up. There is no hope for a show of this style, especially when it has no direction in how it wants to present its stories. It doesn't work. Conceptually, it does not work. The things you would have to tweak would change the entirety of the show, the entire presentation of the show. Hell, maybe even the entire genre of the show, making it more of a drama comedy, where you're just looking at this family that's a little bit dysfunctional, and Allen Gregory is, put up on this pedestal, and when he goes out into the real world, he realizes he's on the same level, so he starts turning on his family somewhat for putting him on that pedestal, or turning on the outside world. All this show did was make a bunch of pretentious, unlikable characters and put them on screen for 7 episodes telling jokes. They're not jokes. Allen Gregory craps his pants, he pukes one time, he talks down to people constantly, he's racist, and he never learns anything from his mistakes. He just keeps making them and getting away with them. It is by far one of the worst TV shows I've ever seen in my entire life. If I had to give Allen Gregory a score out of 10, 1 out of 10. And I mean this when I say it, because I know there are those people out there that want to check out this bad stuff. This show, not only if you live in America, it'll be very hard to find, but it is so not worth watching that I don't think any human being should see it again. I mean it when I say this is one of the worst TV shows I've ever seen. It has no reason to exist, and a lot of places seem to agree with that, which is why it's so hard to watch these days. Don't watch Allen Gregory. Good God, I cannot believe how terrible it was. I remember it being pretty bad when I first checked out a couple episodes of it, but going through the entire thing just puts it all into perspective, how misguided and annoying and frustrating and just cringe-inducing this whole show is. Also, Allen Gregory tries to make a pedophile out of his principal. Just wanted to bring that up again. In this show, that's something he tries to do, and no one bats an eye to it. If that doesn't confuse you, I don't know what could, because this is one of the most confusing shows I've ever seen. It's god-awful, don't watch it, but I'm glad to have taken a look at it, because now I know for sure that it has no redeeming qualities. Thank you all very much for watching this video. I know this was a bit of a longer one, but hey, not every day you get to talk about something this god-awful. In fact, we're pretty lucky with adult animation these days, and for every episode of Hoops we get that's terrible, we get an episode of Rick and Morty that undoes that. And I should mention that Allen Gregory maybe does have one redeeming quality. Its intro song, its theme song, isn't terrible. Just like with Hoops, except they're both 1 out of 10s, and you should not watch them for any reason. And I'll see you all next time. Post down what you want me to check out next in the comments. I read every single comment on this channel, so don't be shy. Goodbye.